Right, rook versus pawn shouldering. You've seen this position many times already. Done 2 whole videos on this position, or the 4 different variants of this position. White to play as a win, black to play as a draw, and that whole mantra where it is white to play as a draw, black to play as a draw if it's a 5th rank rook and a non-rook's pawn. So you're thinking, why have you opened up another video with that again? We don't want to learn about that again. And absolutely, we don't want to learn about that again. That's one of the things that's incredibly important to understand in rook versus pawn. But there's lots of other themes going on in rook versus pawn. I mean, that's heading towards this critical position where, we've seen lots of games where we're heading towards this critical position where the black king from the defending side's perspective, from the black side perspective, so in the defending side's perspective, is on the right side of the pawn. If we were to move the black king and the white king 2 squares that way, then it's just a win for white. It doesn't matter whose move it is, it's just a win because the black king is on the wrong side of the pawn. So, one of the first concepts probably that we should consider is just the case of simple counting. Just count the moves that chase the black pawn back to c2. The white's going to just stick their rook behind the pawn and then get their king to d2, just whilst black's just going to shuffle their king and pawn down the board. You're just counting that out. So that's one concept. You've got this concept, which is just massive. It's all over the place. 2 whole videos on this already. One where all the games led to this position pretty much, and another one where variations of the harder positions games could have led to this position. We've done a video on if this was a knight's pawn, all the sort of the special features and how that gives the attacking side that little bit extra. There's another concept coming up very shortly of if it's a rook's pawn, a different winning method that you can use against a rook's pawn that doesn't work against a non-rook's pawn. We need to cover what happens if the rook is in front of the pawn, what's going on there, because that brings an extra dynamic to the chess table, and shouldering. And I've actually found it very hard to structure rook versus pawn in terms of putting the videos together, because none of these themes can be isolated and sort of studied in a vacuum. They're all sort of there the whole time. I don't know if I've explicitly mentioned shouldering. I probably have. Probably said the word without realizing it. But even if I didn't, it's always implicitly been there. The whole reason this position, or one of the main reasons this position is black to play as a draw, is because the defending side has got their king on the right side of the pawn and they are shouldering the attacking king away from coming to get that pawn. So it's always been there. So let's get on to some positions where shouldering is the theme, and it's less of a sort of thing to learn this. There might be a couple of positions that you might commit to your memory. I've definitely, I've advised many times to commit this position to your memory. White to play as a win, black to play as a draw. But the whole idea of shouldering is something that just needs to be there as an idea rather than learning in this position you do this. It's much more of a theme. And the next position we're about to see, in fact, is this one. A quick shout out to this John Nunn Endgame book, which I've already said I think is a very good book. But it's different to the Book of Jesus, and then Dvoretsky is a follow-up in that it kind of introduces things more as one idea at a time, rather than the Book of Jesus is a bit more formulaic, a bit more in this position you do this, this, and this, and then that's how you win this position. It's not quite as simple as that. They both sort of do each other's way of teaching a little bit as well. But yeah, the John Nunn book's got a section on shouldering, and his book's much more, this is this position, it shows this theme, this is this position, it shows this theme. He seems to be much more of a learn these ideas to get you through these end games rather than learning things by rote. And my own view is I think we need a balance. I'm not saying he doesn't. He does do that balance a bit. There are some positions where you just learn this is how you win them. And the Book of Jesus is much more that. Anyway, shouldering, it's more of an idea, isn't it, than just, no one's gonna get this position in a chess game, this one you're looking at now, and say, right, in this position I learn that I do this. It's just bonkers. Who would do that? So we are learning an idea. Anyway, let's look at it. Rook b5 check. King comes down the board. King e6, h4, rook b4 check. Now here's the point where black needs to make a decision. Now if you moved everything on the board one square to the left, so that we've got a knight's pawn, not a rook's pawn, then black's next move would be fine. Okay, and when I say black's next move, I'm talking about king g3. That move would be fine if it wasn't a rook's pawn. So not only is this the first position of talking about shouldering as a general theme, it's the theme of this video, it's also going to demonstrate a second winning method that the attacking side can use in the case of there being a rook's pawn. Okay, now let's look at it. King f5, h3, check. King g2, king g4, h2, check. King g1, king g3, h1 equals queen, check, mate. Okay, there's no zero rank. The first rank is the first rank on the chessboard. That's a strange sentence to say, wasn't it? So yeah, h1 equals queen, checkmate. Except, of course, it's not h1 equals queen. It's h1 equals knight, check. King f3, the knight's lost, game's over. Now I'll leave you to work out, even though it's coming up later on in this video, why what I said earlier was true about this second winning method only being possible if it's a rook's pawn. I'm not saying I'll leave you to work it out. I mean, there's not really much to work out, is there? We've seen in this position, black knights, king moves, the knight's lost. It's like, what a shame there isn't an I file, because I could play knight I3. So when I said I'd leave you to work it out, I think I've already told you the answer, which I'm sure you got before I even carried on waffling on. So let's get back to that point where king g3 was the losing move. Rook b4 check. The theme of the video is shouldering, and of course we come back and shoulder that white king away. We stop it coming into this f5 square. It's not getting near the pawn, basically. White kind of wants their rook behind the pawn so they can, get down to that critical position and force the black king that way, in front of its own pawn, that sort of thing. So the white rook's sort of a little bit misplaced, and the white king's desperately trying to get down the board to the black pawn, and the black king's just saying, no, you're not coming in. I'm keeping you away from my pawn, thank you very much. King e5, push the h-pawn, king e4, king g4, it's drawn. Okay, so fairly easy to see that that's now drawn. So that's shouldering. Another example here, also a rook's pawn. We might see rook h2 check. And, I mean, even if you'd never seen anything so far on rook versus pawn, as long as you knew the rules of chess and you played a few games of chess and I said to you, right, it's black to play, what would you do? I mean, you've got 4 legal moves, one of which drops the pawn immediately, so you've got 3 moves that are even worth considering at all. One of them you stick your king in front of the pawn you're trying to promote, and get mated, virtually the next move. So unless you're just sort of picking up your king and moving it randomly, any kind of thought into like, oh, if I go there, what will white do? You're going to find the right move here. Because you would say, oh, king a1's obviously useless, because it's going to be king c3 and you pre-move rook h1 checkmate. King b1, well, we can look at king b1, but really it should be going through our head. King b1, white can play king b3. Oh, I'm getting checkmated unless I knight. But isn't that the position we just saw where the knight's lost? Yep, it is. So I shouldn't play king b1. Nope. King a3. It's done. It's just a draw. You can see that white's getting nowhere here. And that was shouldering. We're keeping the white king out of b3. So it's a shouldering theme, but it's pretty obvious. I mean, it's one of those ones that you would get by process of elimination. Just go through the moves. King c1 drops the pawn. King a1 is checkmating 2. King b1. We're going to get that knight thing that we just saw. So I don't know, try king a3 because everything else loses. And king a3 is, of course, a draw. Right, let's start looking at some games. This is a game from 2000. It is white to play. We've already seen a position similar to this in one of the other harder positions leading to that white to play is a win, black to play is a draw mantra position, that crossroads position I keep calling it. And white's kind of got a choice here. Do they just go for it? Simple counting. Just start shuffling their king and pawn up the board. I mean, you can literally just count the moves. There's nothing to do there except count the moves. Oh, sorry. Not those moves. Just realised that the king coming to e6 would have been quite useful. And possibly e7 as well. You just count the moves. And we'll go through it, but if you count them, you'll see that it's lost. Done. Lost. I mean, you could go back to this position, because it's not just you don't have to just count and both sides just, take it in turns to play these moves that are sort of mandatory or something. They're not mandatory. After king g6, yeah, black can bring their rook behind the f-pawn. But what if white said, well, whilst I'm controlling f4, I'm going to stick in this f7. What are you doing there? Well, that forces rook b8. Then I'll come forward. Oh. Or actually, sorry, a better move than king g6 there would have been do a bit of shouldering. So it's too late for proper shouldering, if you like, the shouldering that would have got you the draw. But do some shouldering now. It's just gone. Okay. So you might as well try and get across to the right side of the pawn and head for this e6 square ultimately, where you're hopefully going to be keeping the black king out. Probably going to be keeping the black king out from behind, to be honest, by the end of it all. Keeping out that square as well, I don't know, probably that's not a relevant square. And it seems a sort of paradoxical move to shove your king in front of its own pawn, but it's needed. You need your king on the right side of the pawn. Black king comes closer. Annoyingly, you can't play king e6 straight away because your f-pawn's hit, but king e5, rook b5. I mean, you can see if the king comes in here, for example, it's the black king's just annoyingly shouldered away, isn't it? So rook b5 check, king e6, then the king comes in, f5, and you can see that, yeah, being told to go away. Obvious draw. So that was a game from 2009. King f5 is the correct first move. I would play that move automatically, I'm pleased to say. So I guess I'm not so worried about this sort of position. I would play that move automatically, which then I guess gets me worried about, like, oh, is there a position? Is there another position where in time trouble it was the wrong decision and you should just do the quick shuffle because that was the way to draw it? So I have to try and work out a position where my automatic move is actually the wrong move. I need to stop and think about it. But I like to think if I had time, I would stop and think about it. But if I didn't have time to think here, I would just play king f5. Right, next, this is a game from 1950. It is black to play. Pause the video maybe now. Now we're getting the hang of this shouldering, and I guess count out the moves to the critical position, the crossroads position. Is there something else you could do? The theme of this video is shouldering. So here's the counting out the moves. King b5, king f7, a5, king e6, a4, king d5, king b4, king d4, king b3, king to d3, a3, White to play is a win, black to play is a draw. And this is white to play, which means it's a win. So black's lost. So if you do that, you've lost. Just count out the moves, you've lost. So, oh, well, what can I do instead? Well, you can come and stop the white king. You can shoulder the white king from making that journey that it wanted to make. King c5, king f7, push the a pawn, king e6, a4. And this is the bit where the white king's getting nowhere, and white would probably, well, the best try really is to stick the rook behind the pawn. That's forced you back to the b file, and you're thinking, like, how's that any good? How is that any good? Because I've been forced back to the b file anyway. The point is that white didn't need their rook on a8. White could have left their rook on h8, and did leave their rook on h8, because to get down to that critical position. So that extra move that white's used has now taken us to this position. White to play is a win, black to play is a draw, and this time it's black to play because white's played this useless move. In fact, I think I'm right in saying that if it's a rook's pawn, the rook being behind the pawn serves no advantage whatsoever. If it's a non-rook's pawn, there is an advantage to it. Okay. If that was a non-rook's pawn, this check would win the game. That's always the move that wins the game in these white to play, is a win positions. But there's a second winning move, which is this. But there's only a winning move for a non-rook's pawn if the rook is behind the pawn. Why is that useful? Why do you need a second winning move? Well, if the rook was on the 5th rank, then the first winning move isn't a winning move, so you would have to use the second one. All clear on that little sort of tangent I went off on there? It's also reminders of those 4 critical positions again. But the point is that for a rook's pawn, the white rook's just as well off on h8 from white's perspective as it is on a8. And that move, by shouldering, let's go back to it, by coming in and shouldering the white king away there, you either, white has to accept they've been shouldered away, or at some point has to play this useless move. It doesn't look like a useless move, but it is a useless move. Anyway, that was a game from 1950. I forget whether it actually went like that. I think it did actually. I think the person playing black played that king c5 shouldering move. This is a game from 1929. Now I happen to remember that in this one, black to play, the person playing black was a world championship contender, or a challenger to go into the candidates or something. It was a top player of the time. Played a horrendous move here. It's very clear that we're going to be losing our rook for this b pawn, and we're going to end up in rook versus pawn. That's what's coming up here. So then you're like, right, well, where do I want my king? It's sort of me to move for now. This rook's sort of nicely placed, ready to give itself up on b8. By the way, when you do that, the thing I always check is like, okay, my rook's earmarked for this. Just watch out for rook c8. It's like, oh no, now they're getting a queen. Okay, just keep an eye out for that. That's an important tactical point. Position, is it position or is it tactical? It's a bit of both. Not a problem here. This rook's just going to sit here, waiting to give itself up on b8. So where do you want your king? Well, this guy from 1929 decided they wanted their king here, which sort of baffles me. And when I see sort of moves from the past and games from ages ago, sometimes you think, wow, if I'd been playing chess 100 years ago, I might have been one of the best players in the world. But is it that, or is it just that was at the time considered just a horrendous move? I'm sure standards have improved, but that just seems really, really bad. I always have to sort of check myself when I say something like that, because it sounds just stupidly arrogant, and it's like, no, have a think about it. These people were top chess players. It's the same resources. It's 8 pawns, the 2 rooks, 2 knights, 2 bishops, a king and a queen. It's the same thing. It's you know, there's no reason why they would have been. Why standards would improve that much? They're top chess players, and so. But then you look at a move like that and you think, how was that ever a good idea for anyone? I don't know. Maybe it's because maybe I'm being blasé because of all the good work in these books, and it just makes it seem easy. And anyway, I'm waffling on. The guy plays this King G4 move, and it just ends with a bit of simple counting. I mean, they could have just simple countered it. It's the simple counting situation. It's lost, and he resigned there. So yeah, just baffling really that King E4 wasn't the move played, and that's not even a time gaining check there, is it? I mean, white plays the check just to sort of get the king out the way a little bit, to maybe bring the king to the d5 square, although then doesn't use it. King c5, f3, king c4. We're just nowhere near. I mean, I was thinking, what else could white do here? The black king is shouldering away the white king. It's clearly drawn. King e4. Clearly the way to draw it. Like I say, it's not a time gaining check because you're improving the position of the black king. It's going from e4 to e3. You've got your rook behind the pawn, which is useful, I suppose. So yeah, king e4, easy draw. Right, this one's very good. This is white to play. Pause the video and decide what you'll do. This is a game from 2007. So in the game, king d6 was played, and that throws away the win straight away. And possibly because they'd seen similar things to that 1929 game, the guy playing black straight away plays king e4. Good move. King on the right side of the pawn. Something that's going to be pretty useful here for white is to deliver this check. That's a pretty good check to deliver, because it will force black to make a decision. And black's only got one move here that carries on with the draw, because if it goes back, it's then temporarily cut off from this rank, and you can see black sort of going backwards, literally going backwards. King e3, the white king came into d7, and it got here. And I think you can probably guess where this is going. F1 equals queen, checkmate. But of course, it's not F1 equals queen, it's F1 equals knight, check. And we've already seen this position. I've already posed the question, why doesn't that winning method work against the non-rook's pawn? Well, here it is. And by the way, something I'd recommend everyone has a go at is have this as the starting position, but with everything shifted one square to the right, and try and draw it against stockfish. So after the king moves this way, the knight would have to move there. That would be h3, and it's very hard, because what white's trying to do is force black to get their knight away from the king. So that would then be the next disastrous move. And once the knight gets cut off from the king, it can usually get trapped on the other side of the board. That's the thing. You're trying to just keep your knight close to your king as much as you can. And you should be able to draw it. But grandmasters have lost this position with the pieces all moved one over to the right. I'd give it a go against stockfish, and I'll probably mess it up, to be honest. It's worth practicing, saying, oh yeah, you just do this, this and this, and then it's rook versus knight, which is a draw. You've still got to draw rook versus knight, and the other way around. I'd still play on, just try and get them to move their knight away from their king, and I'd play this on as white. Yeah, why not? You can't lose him. Yeah, so after king d3, knight g3. Anyway, let's go back to even after the guy playing white's messed it up, because there was a second try here, though it doesn't really do very much. After this king e3, you can play rook b8, just trying to keep your king a bit closer. Rook takes c7, and alright, black's moved your king further away, but at least your rook's sort of behind the pawn now. It doesn't really achieve anything though. You're just going to end up in exactly the same drawing position. You're heading towards the same rook versus knight. So shouldering, it's all about shouldering. Your king is brilliantly placed from the attacker's point of view, shouldering away the black king. So you want to keep that. If it was black to move, they're going to take your c-pawn, obviously. But if it's black to move, they couldn't take your c-pawn. Their king's got to go this way, and that's exactly what you want. So yeah, rook c6. Black's in trouble. The king's got to go the wrong side of the pawn. Now there's still only one winning move. It's an important move. It's a tempo gaining move. And it's rook c4 check. The point is that if the king comes forward, the f-pawn's lost. So black has to play king g5, and that's just one crucial tempo, one crucial move in the wrong direction. And then you just come in for the rook. I don't think it mattered which route you took in. Does that do anything for... I suppose, yeah, they've got to move their rook away. Queen take with the rook. And off we go. It's a simple counting job. Win. That's how white should have won that game. Rook c6. Oh. I've lost my annotations, but shouldering. You go that way. One last one. This is also a simple counting job, really. It's black to play. It's a game from 1993. Shouldering sort of involved. It's always there, like I say, even though I wouldn't need to explicitly mention shouldering here, it was always lurking there implicitly on all the rook and pawn stuff, rook versus pawn stuff we've done so far. You've got to kick off with a time gaining check. Okay. That's a big improvement. Okay. You started off in this position, your rook isn't behind the pawn, and the white king is on the 6th rank. Okay. And then after a few more moves, it's still you to move. Your rook is behind the pawn, and the white king is on the 5th rank. So that is progress. It almost doesn't matter what happens next. That is obviously progress. So just do that. That was a clear case of time gaining check. We've gained one tempo and got the rook behind the pawn, which might gain another tempo in some circumstances later. Although not in this position. Now, then you're in a case of counting out the moves, really. I mean, this is the critical square, isn't it? c6. So you'd be looking at 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. No chance. Okay. And that's because the white king is the right side of the pawn. We get round to that white to play as a win, black to play as a draw. You don't even get to that position. It's several way around, black to play as a win, white to play as a draw. White's just going to have the draw with a move to spare. What a shame the white king isn't the wrong side of the pawn. It's like, well, who says that's the right side of the pawn? It's only the right side of the pawn because we've gone to c6. If we went to g6, it's the wrong side of the pawn. That's actually going to be a lot better. Remember, we've got spare moves there as well, because the white king is the wrong side of the pawn, so it's really just a case of counting. White needs to carry on the journey before they're ready to queen. And by that stage, we could play rook takes f7. In fact, just count the red versus the blue, and you can see that that's the correct winning plan. So king e3, f5, king f3, f6, king g4, king e6. I mean, this is just us now seeing that the red and the blue, was it 5-all? And now the pawn's gone. I think it was that, or it was a win for black, because I think I shoved that one as one of the red moves. I guess shouldering, the theme of shouldering, you could argue, was sort of a bit tenuous there, because there was a bit of shouldering going on. It was more just a case of simple counting and choosing the right side for the king. But the tenuous link in terms of shouldering was that we choose this side for our black king, which I think I did in blue, rather than this side for our black king, because on the green side the white king is shouldering away the black king. You could think, really? That's shouldering, is it? Well, it's still a rook versus pawn position. Hopefully a learning point, and I guess further proof that these concepts can't be studied in a vacuum. Anyway, I think that's enough from me on shouldering.